What you see in the dark black line here.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
can I ask you to move the chart back so that...
Can't say it.
Yes, thank you.
Better?
That's good, thanks.
Okay, everybody knows Bee Ridge Park of Commerce is it was ultimate, in the beginning, it was a 90-acre property that included the Health South complex and then was split off. It was part of a MEC, what's called a Major Employment Center, that was approved in 1984 by Sarasota County in their original comp plan, which was, the comp plan is, what it is a land use plan that dictates how future development occurs based on past experience. 1975, the state passed a law, the Growth Management Act, which required the counties and cities process a comprehensive land use plan, and it deals with like housing, economics, environmental, commercial development, financing, future land use. Future land use, basically, once it's approved, okay, you need to rezone property that's consistent with the future land use plan. Now, in 2000 and I believe it was 2001 or 2002. Been working on this property since 1981, so it's been a long time. A 10-acre parcel was designated for what's called CN, Commercial Neighborhood Development. Now, that's the future land use designation for that property. All we're doing at this point is now actually rezoning some of the land area within that defined 10 acres to CN, Commercial Neighborhood. The racetrack is not part of our development. We're not doing anything with the racetrack. The reason for that is they already have entitlements. They don't want to mess around with it 24/7 in terms of their hours. They've got 24 pumps in there. CN neighborhood area only allows 4, so we're not going to deal with that. Same token, we're not going to deal with this piece over here on the west side of Mauna Loa. And the reason we're not is because it currently is approved as a dry cleaners under the what is now PCD zoning, and I'll explain that in a minute. Under CN zoning, it would only be allowed to have one drive-through window. There isn't a drugstore in the world that wants only one drive-through. So in order to keep a second driveway, the county won't budge on this, we have to leave that in PCD. Now, PCD is Planned Commerce District, and we have Planned Commerce District zoning for the entire 46 acres that is part of this development. Okay? PCD allows commercial, it allows industrial, it allows all kinds of development. We got this zoning back in 1996, and it was done without benefit of a site plan. So we had pretty much free reign in terms of deciding what we're going to do with the rest of the development. And that's all been approved through site and development and construction plan approval, which vests traffic, it vests water and sewer, it vests all of the infrastructure for providing for that development. Okay? Recognize that everything we're asking for in this area in the dark black line is similar to or identical to what is already approved under PCD. These two boxes right here are going to be restaurants. The big 80,000 square foot footpad has been divided into two 18,000 square foot footpads with commercial on the front, first floor, office on the second. And we haven't decided if we're going to put a third floor on and do residential. We'll make that decision prior to actually submitting the application. So this area in here, which was building pad, is now parking, which actually helps the whole thing. The county has determined that the cut-through right here on Mauna Loa should be closed. So people coming into the site can go right into racetrack or the rest of this CN development, but in order to get out and cross over and go left, they have to come up this road right here, cross over and go down. And that's for traffic and impacts that the county feels is too close to Bee Ridge Road. All of the infrastructure for water, sewer, conservation, for stormwater, All of that's done. Everything is stubbed into the developments, ready to go. We can pull a permit on everything you see in this plan right here today. We have to go through S&D construction plan approval for specific buildings, architecture, vertical development, but the horizontal is done. So all we're asking for is approval for CN development for these two 18,000 square foot pads and these two restaurant sites. Now, we don't know the ultimate users on any of those. One of these sites may end up being like a tire store. But right now, it's programmed for restaurants. Let the questions begin, because this, sir,
You said you weren't going to address the racetrack. Tell me why.
because they already have entitlements.
What's an entitlement?
They're ready to go ahead and break ground.
But you said the zoning was for 4 pumps, and they're saying they're putting in 24.
No. The zoning that they have is PCD, and PCD allows as many pumps as they want, and they can operate 24/7.
Without regard to the neighborhood across the street, as far as light, noise, traffic?
That's all been approved. Whatever restrictions they have to live with in terms of the racetrack, it's already
So in
done.
other words, we don't have any kind of say at all in anything that goes on.
Not on that.
Why not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Why are we even?
Do you have any guarantees, like penalties, that if somebody doesn't build anything there and it's rezoned, is somebody committed money to those buildings that you spent?
The only guarantees in life are taxes and death.
So we don't know what goes there.
Well, I'm just telling you that we are programming for 2 restaurants here, some commercial on these buildings here with offices on the second floor.
Slaughterhouses and all?
I'll give you this. This is the question. You indulge me for a minute, so the folks here know what this represents. I want to read the letter that faces this. My name's Joe O'Hara, and I'm part of the Bee Ridge Neighborhoods Committee. We documented these questions for Mr. Daly. The facing letter says, the attached questions are submitted on behalf of the Bee Ridge Neighborhoods Committee regarding the requested rezoning of the Bee Ridge Park of Commerce. The Bee Ridge Neighborhoods Committee consists of representatives of 11 HOAs and other groups. These organizations encompass over 6,000 rooftops in the communities that lie to the east of I-75 and generally populate the Bee Ridge corridor. There may be additional questions from individuals or groups, and we're requesting written responses to our questions and copies of responses to all the other questions that may be asked. And I've listed my name and number. So I don't want to hog the thing up. I'll do one, and then it's up to you to go now. But we'd like to get all 7 of these questions in front of you before the evening's over. The first question is, it's one of clarity, really. It's on March 12th in 2007, a Herald Tribune article reported that the Sarasota County Commissioners voted 4-1 to give Mr. Horton 1 year to complete the project in Bee Ridge Park of Commerce, or lose zoning that had previously been granted from OUE PCD. To our knowledge, nothing was done in the park for several years after that commission vote. We would like you to seek a staff opinion concurred in by the county attorney as to whether any and all activity subsequent to the 1-year limitation is in fact legal or illegal, and whether any projects are allowed to proceed. That's the first comment.
I'm not a lawyer, but I'll tell you that any development activity keeps your permit alive. And there's been a lot of development activity on that site. Putting in all the water and sewer, doing all the conservation land
Was that done within
building
a
the
year?
pond.
Was that done within a year?
If you do it in the beginning of the year, it continues the permit.
Well, the quotation was finish the project, whatever that meant by commission. All we want to make sure is this is being.
Quote was by the Herald Tribune.
Yeah.
Who knows what the commission said.
Well, we can get the commission. Okay. So you have the first question. So we have others. I'll let you go from there.
Okay.
I got one follow-up question, that if the answer is no, I'm just going to leave. If we don't have anything that we can say whatsoever about the 24-pump gas station, why are we here? And if there's something we can say, who do we say it to? Because it's opening up across from a neighborhood that's going to have truckers coming in and out all night. Traffic's going to be horrendous, noise is going to be horrendous, lighting is going to be
I
horrendous.
appreciate your
And there are
concerns on
no
that.
accommodations made. Why didn't we know about it? And who can we talk
I
to?
put it in the newspaper article that the racetrack is not part of this development.
What is it part of?
It's part of the PC, the whole MEC district.
Then how did that get approved?
It already
Why
had-
wasn't there this kind of a hearing for that?
It was,
When?
back in 1996.
Oh, holy crap.
Were there houses there?
Let's go.
Where were the houses then?
Who do you actually represent?
The owners of the property, TerraCap Corporation, or Canadian Development Company.
Yeah, tell my.
That are buying the
Yeah.
So you're gonna
houses
flip the
and
property.
Yes.
That's what the newspapers say. You're in the property flipping business.
Pardon?
The newspapers clearly state that you're in the property flipping business,
I am.
not in development. TerraCap.
The
Is that
owner
true?
developing this property, so
Is that true?
I
You
don't
have
know.
no obligation to develop the property,
I don't know who they are.
and you represent them.
They pay my check.
Goodbye.
Here we
I have
go.
no use for this kind of thing.
I also have a conversation. My name is Bob Peckman, I'm president of the Neighborhoods Committee. I also have a bunch of questions, but I'll start with just the first one here. Current zoning on the majority property has been resubmitted. Why are you requesting a change to neighborhood commercial?
Because it allows us to do a few extra things that we can't do under the PCD.
Like what?
Well, get more commercial in here.
Does that remove all the restrictions that were applied to the other zoning? The remaining parcels?
In terms of what?
There were restrictions on easements for conservation and everything else?
No, all that stays in place. The basic approved site plan for the 46 acres stays the same. All we're doing is changing these two building footprints. This stays the same, all the traffic pattern stays the same, all the parking and circulation stays the same. Everything stays the same, it's just changing the name from PCD to CN.
Why don't you
changes. That's not
Because it
true.
allows us to have some more increased commercial.
Okay, so then that's not true what you just said.
Total 5% of the district. It's the reason we went for CN zoning in the first place back in 2004, I guess it was, or 3. It was under RU 84 when we got the CN designation.
May I follow up with that? What additional commercial is being added to that parcel that wouldn't have been allowed under PCD? Can you point that out? You said it allows you to do additional commercial. What piece of that do you do under PCD that you can do now?
This 80,000 square foot footprint was medical office. It is now going to be some retail, some office, maybe residential. The village.
And you couldn't do that mixture under PCD?
Sir, you're saying residential above business offices. Who would want to live, what kind of residential are we talking about? Are we talking about some kind of income, housing income
No,
type of residential? I mean,
It's
who's gonna want
it's
to
kind
live?
of a new style of urban planning. You have these town centers. Site-Lock is going to be a very expensive mall up on University Parkway and I-75. It's going to have residential on the 3rd floor over all the shops.
Question. Who and when is responsible for this possible change to CN designation?
Who's responsible? Well, I'll let Jack talk about the process. I'll answer a little bit of the process. Once we finish this workshop, I go ahead and actually make submittal to the county for the rezone. And the staff reviews the rezone for completion, and we complete it, and then they schedule it for public hearing. And it has to go before the planning commission, and then it has to go before the board of county commissioners for final approval.
So there's quite a bit has to happen
A
before.
lot. And it's about a 3 or 4 month process from today.
And will we be notified?
You'll be notified, everybody that's on the mailing list will be mailed out again, a notice of the public hearing. It will also be in the newspaper when the public hearings will occur. And the sign, the property itself will be posted. Yes?
You said the original zoning was approved in 1996, is
Yes.
that correct? At that time, I assume you submitted traffic studies and traffic
Oh, yes.
reports.
Not just
That
once.
is
Not just once, a whole bunch of
Right.
things.
Will you be submitting updated traffic reports and current information on the traffic flow for this particular area, given that there's been significant building
Yes.
since
The
then?
answer to that is yes.
And that is being done by an approved traffic study agency
Yes,
for
ma'am.
the county?
Are you trying to study the entire parcel or just your 10-acre site?
Just the 10 acres and how it, actually, what we're actually rezoning is only 7.7. And how that affects the matrix for the whole development.
May I read my next question, and it ties into this? If it's appropriate. Is that okay?
Fine?
It says Racetrack submitted a traffic study to the county as part of their application to proceed with their plans. We disagree with the conclusions of that study relative to traffic impacts at the intersection as well as flow through along the road. Further, we reject concurrency studies as a means of evaluating traffic roads that might affect a parcel of this size. We also reject any use of traffic studies associated with this property because of the age of those studies. Are you willing to do a complete new traffic study for the entire parcel based on expected development that evaluates the impacts of traffic on Bee Ridge Road from Catlin to Ventry, as well as the intersection impacts of Mount Low and Bee Ridge, and the impacts on the traffic exiting from I-75 on northbound lane? We're asking you to restudy the whole thing. The concurrency just doesn't work. And since this is a single outlet entity, concurrency really is irrelevant. You have no ability to get out to the north. Everything's going to flow through that red light. And if you take concurrency, I've never seen one yet where an outside firm hired by a developer doesn't say the traffic patterns are fine. I mean, that's what you get paid to do. The fact of the matter is, you're expanding not only this, but there are other things that will come in the future, and one concurrency on top of another, the sum of the pieces never equals the five. And we really would like to see a total new traffic study based on everything that TerraCap owns the whole thing. Why not do a study for the whole project?
Here's the situation. We have 655 approved trips under concurrency. If we exceed that, we have to do a complete traffic study. Up to 655 trips, we don't have to do anything. We've already given land area out front here to widen Bee Ridge. We were responsible for putting in the light. One thing I didn't talk to you about is we are asking for a right-in, right-out only into the development here at basically the east end of the development. It comes into the just east or western restaurant site here. What that does, two things. That relieves a whole lot of traffic going through this intersection of anybody coming from the west, or east, excuse me. Right? It also allows traffic that's in here to get back out and come back through this way, not having to come back through the light that way. So it modally splits the traffic, which actually helps the whole traffic situation.
Has there been any look at pedestrian and bicycle safety in that area?
Well, you know Bee Ridge is going to be widened. When it's widened, it's going to have bicycle lanes. We already have bicycle lanes on Montalona. We've done what we have to do.
I'd like to follow up on this same point. You said 655 trips. What's a trip? Could you define your terms, please?
A PM peak hour trip, that's one trip of one car leaving this site or coming into this site between 4:30 and 6 o'clock in the evening.
On any day of the year?
No, it's rated for March, I think, what is it, March 1st or March 30th or something? Yeah, any day of the year, any day of the year.
And when are you going to do that study?
Which study?
That one that's going to measure how many trips there actually are?
Well, we have to submit, for this, we have to submit a matrix showing what's approved now and what we're proposing and see what the delta is and how to do it.
So you're going to estimate the number of trips for the future racetrack and all these other things that you're putting in?
Racetrack is part of the approved trips now.
Is part of the 655 trips?
Yes, sir.
And when did they figure out that that would have X number of trips, since it doesn't exist yet?
Well, when you're doing your studies for permitting, you have to submit studies to the county to be reviewed by traffic and transportation planners. So
This is the largest,
that was approved
this is,
years ago.
I would just point out, if it was approved years ago, that was before anyone dreamt of racetracks as
No.
large as what they're putting in here.
The study was done for racetrack, and racetrack was first thinking about coming onto this site.
With their 24 pump station, 6,000 square feet, larger than any racetrack anybody in this room has ever seen.
They've actually gone back to the drawing board, and they're going to reduce the size of the building. I don't know to what size, but less than what they have under the board's now.
Will we be able to verify that with racetrack?
Yes, sir.
I'm unclear. When did you get the approval for the 655 trips? Recently or 2007 or?
We did the S&D construction plan approval for the entire development, that's the entire 46 acres, back in 2007.
Well, I guess one would argue that really is outdated in terms of what has occurred.
What difference in the trips does it make? It's the same, we haven't changed the land use designation on any of the buildings or any of the uses in the council.
But you said you're going to put more commercial. Would that impact the number of trips?
It may not, because we use medical office as which is the highest generation rate in the world. It's higher than many of the commercial uses that we're proposing. Yes.
What is the distance between Matalona and your proposed?
440 feet.
I'm sorry,
440 feet.
440 feet, and how long is the car?
How long's the car?
Yeah. How
Depends.
many cars can fit?
A truck is about 100.
Because there's a traffic light that backs up past that right turn only place that you're talking about now, currently, before anything goes in there. I'm just curious as to how that's going to work.
Well, I mean, this is just proposed. Obviously, if we get the actual construction plans on that, we have to submit a construction plan that shows how it's going to be. There may be a continuation of that decel lane farther to the east. I don't know the details on that.
Do you know where Santo Avenue is in relation to that proposed driveway?
Right here?
Yes.
I'm going to guess it's right here.
Because that Santo, I believe you can turn left or right coming out of there. It's just.
You can't go, at this point, you can't go.
No, from Santo.
Santo vehicle, it's going to be closed when you ride the bridge.
It is. I thought it's the one.
Yes, sir.
You had clarified that the
original
8,000
plan.
square foot.
Excuse me, one person talking, please.
You clarified that one difference in the zoning was the difference between a medical building and what you described. What about those two pads in the front? They're the same in either zone?
These are the same as what's approved in the PCD.
Okay.
They're two sit-down restaurants.
You know, I'll just make one comment here. With all the pushback that you're hearing having to do with that racetrack, now that racetrack was a parcel that was sold by this Canadian company that's in charge of this whole operation, right?
Actually, it was probably sold by the previous owner.
By the previous owner. Right. But you know, with the upset about that, it seems to me here that I'm not sure why this community would cooperate to change away from a medical building, in which some people may use it from time to time around here, instead to allow something that's going to have new apartments being built.
We haven't decided to do the residence portion of this yet.
Okay, but you would have the right to do it.
Don't rely on that. This is something we're kicking around internally. And you got, you know, the other side of Mount Low, and you get up here and go over into Hell South, there's plenty of medical office over there.
What mitigation are you planning for that property as it's facing the neighborhood across the street?
Well, it has to have buffers, the buffers that are approved under the current PCD plan.
What are you planning to put in there for buffers? Can you be more specific? You're going to plant a tree like this?
There's a 50-foot buffer in the front here that's going to have some retention in it and have a whole bunch of trees. Trees and
Do you have
shrubs.
any design yet? Is that what you're going to do?
No.
It's a 50-foot buffer.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to do anything across the street to help these residents that would face it?
We'll consider it, but there's nothing in the ordinances that require it.
I didn't say there wasn't any ordinance. All I said is, would you?
I will bring it up with the principals and see if they'll consider it.
If you're not gonna go with the drugstore because of the dual drive,
No, we are going to the drugstore.
even though you only can have one drive.
You said a dry cleaner before.
No, that's not PCD.
We're making this track PCD so that we can go with a drugstore with two drivers.
You said dry cleaner.
It's a dry cleaner under the existing plan. The traffic generation rate for a dry cleaner and a drugstore are identical.
So you got the restaurants, which would be Target Plus maybe, right? What if you turned around and said, I want to put a club in there, play with music and crap like that?
Put a what?
Brings in, like a nightclub or something crazy. Are they able to do that now? Are you looking to zone it top two, so you can put something different? I don't know, can bars go in there now?
They can't go in here, in these two sites.
Okay, but now you're trying to change the upper half, we had parking put in there, so the guy can live upstairs, go down, have a drink, and God knows what goes there, he comes, stops by,
That's possible.
and then if that's the case, you could put a club in there, and make loud music, and really disrupt everything. That's what you're saying. You want to change how it is now, so you can put anything in there. Is that what you're doing? That's what you're looking to change from
Not
medical
anything
to
in there,
anything?
certain things that make the developers money from whatever impacts they have.
I understand that. It's just, they don't care
What
about the
kind
impact
of
on
things?
us.
That's why I think everybody's trying to ask you.
We don't
Will
know.
you- will you
We
have
don't know who the
stipulations?
end users are yet. Why would we
What
go
is the
seek an end
limitation
user when
on
we haven't got any rezoning?
Would you agree to any stipulations as to what will not be allowed in there?
He doesn't have the
Leave it up
authority.
to the board and allow the board to decide.
He's a puppet. You have no
Are there
authority.
any limitations?
He's just a mouthpiece.
With
That's all he is.
respect to what, sir?
You know, what can go in there?
Oh, he's never gonna have.
Well, whatever the zoning code allows.
All about how much they pay.
I mean, the CN zone is a neighborhood commercial zone. So just by the nature of the fact that it's neighborhood, there are restrictions already. You can't have anything, I don't know, Jack, help me on this, can't have anything after midnight or 11 o'clock if it's a bar or anything like that. And that's only on weekends. If it's like 10 o'clock or something like that during the week. So there are restrictions already on CN zoning.
Where, is there a list of those somewhere?
Yes, it's in, you can go online and look at go to Muni Code, hit Sarasota, pull up the zoning code and look at the restrictions on CN zoning.
Tom, if you go to Bob,
Yes.
you did the comparison.
How could we get the developer and all the communities that are surrounded to work together so that we could have enough of a buffer? And, you know, I know the county's gonna develop the bridge and they're gonna widen it and put trees in. I was in Fort Myers, I saw a racetrack, just use it as an example, and they were like 5 palm trees. That was their buffer. It was like, I cannot even believe a palm tree is a grass, it's not a tree. So, my thing is, I'd like us to try to work together so we have a really nice buffer, so we don't have to look at the restaurants, we don't have to look at all of that when we pull out of our neighborhood, which is a family neighborhood. So, if we could, you know, kind of work together on that.
I can start by telling you the buffer requirements here are a lot more stringent, all right? I believe CN requires 3 canopy trees per 100 feet, 6 100-story trees, and a continuous hedge. So you're gonna have lots of landscape. In a 50-foot area, it's not gonna be a straight line, it's gonna be lots of zig and zag.
What about signage?
Yes,
Yeah,
Well,
that's what it is.
Peter, listening to the discussion, you're asking for something different from what is currently there. What I pick up from listening to everybody in the room, including the racetrack, because that's physically part of whatever, even if it's not your thing. What's in it for the neighborhood to want to support your rezoning as opposed to going to the county commission, the planning commission en masse and opposing it? I mean, I haven't heard you make an argument for it other than whatever.
I mean,
So sell it,
all of
Peter,
you
or-
right now are in a position where you don't want anything to happen, because that's been the theory here in Sarasota forever. If you don't build it, they won't come. Well, the fact is, they have come, and we need to supply services, especially east of the interstate. This will create a situation where a lot of the traffic that goes under the interstate right now to get to Calvin Road, it'll relieve that intersection, it'll relieve under the interstate, basically. People will love this once it's in. You'll argue till the cows come home that you don't want it. Once it's there, you're all going to use it. Guaranteed.
Names of stores you're gonna put in there.
We don't know.
You don't know. How can you guarantee that we're even gonna go in there?
I guarantee you're going to go there.
What you said, there's only 2 guarantees.
Now there's 3.
Restaurant, is that including McDonald's?
These are sit-down restaurants.
It could be a McDonald's?
No. Fast food is not allowed to sit.
Cheesecake Factory, and I can talk. Cheesecake Factory, maybe.
Mr. Daly, so far what you've shown us is a site plan we've been looking at for quite some time, prior to this meeting. I kind of expected that tonight you're having a neighborhood meeting so you could introduce the neighborhood to what it is you envision putting there. A design, something to show us what it's going to look like, a traffic circulation pattern, more data that would enable us to make an informed judgment about what you're doing. I see a site plan. I don't see a design of an actual shopping center or anything.
This is the design. The only difference is these 2 buildings, instead of being an 80,000 square foot pad, are 2 18,000 pads.
Point out each tree then.
What's the front of that building look like?
You haven't done any
vertical architecture on anything other than a racetrack.
You're saying 2 18,000, right?
2 floors. So 36,000 feet. Right.
What they've done is
Is there going to be a sign on the throughway stating there's restaurants and a gas station at
because it's a
Rosa?
neighborhood,
I have no clue.
they're
Well,
allowed
how do you
so
find
many
that?
people
Who calls that?
per square foot.
Well, if I had a gas station, I would
And
want
so
a sign.
they're using the density from the restaurants
I couldn't tell
because
you.
it's
If
regulated
there's a process to do that, they'll probably
neighborhood. So
try
it's
to do it.
allowed so
Well,
much.
yeah, because if you're going to
And
have
they're
developers
using
that
that
put
over
restaurants
into
in
the
there, how is
apartments.
anybody going to know? Only our
So
little
they can
neighborhood,
increase the
surrounding
density.
area.
Put them on those blue signs.
Build a neighborhood with
should say that.
That's a state issue, not
66,000,
a county.
6,600.
I thought
Right.
and they can actually use the density from the road and everything else.
All I'm doing is permitting this through zoning.
Yes. Peter, is there any buffering on the backside, and if so, of what nature?
On the backside of what?
Of
That
property?
area.
This stuff?
Yeah.
This whole area in here is the conservation area. And this piece here is just showing the actual 7.7 acres that is being rezoned here. But this goes all the way up behind the manor nursing home and up into the residential area.
There are no plans to develop that for changing the zone?
What, all this stuff?
Yes.
No, that's all permanent conservation area and wetlands and whatever.
I have no questions. You said that the traffic flow on Mauna Loa, that they're requiring, that you anticipate that they're going to close the cut-through that's presently there.
Yeah, this opening right here will be closed.
So if that's eliminated, how, will you do that? I don't understand. I mean, it looks like racetrack's going to need that cut-through.
They have a right turn in, and then they exit the site up here and cross over down. Or exit the site on this, and then back to it.
Racetrack asked for opening to be created within that median to allow them easier access out of the county denied. So their only current entry and exit is a small service road that runs parallel to the back end of the property.
Slight correction of what he's saying. The cut-through was approved under the PCD site plan, and the construction plans that were approved. The county, when racetrack asked to have it stay open, Dennis said no. All right, Jack, any other things about the process?
Yeah, I'd like to know the timing, like when are you gonna,
I'm
you don't
gonna
know?
submit this probably by first part of next week.
No, not that, but when would they like to be completed?
As soon as they can get through the process.
Is this a unified development, like gonna build the whole thing at once, or is it parcel by parcel?
Parcel by parcel.
You mean there'll be a piece over here, and then a giant racetrack, and then something else over here?
Sir, I can't actually answer that because I'm not the developer. They may come in and do the whole thing at once.
But you don't have a timetable?
TerraCap is not going to be owner of the property. They will not be the builder. They are going to sell the property to someone else. Is that right? That's, is that permission? Do they own
Could be.
it?
I don't know. They own a shopping center down in Fort Myers that they built. So I don't know what they're going to do.
This property is currently listed for sale. Are you aware of that? The 10 acres plus another few acres behind it are listed for sale now on the internet. So what you're presenting to us is a plan that may not even be owned by the people you represent. So how could we like even...
It may not be, sir, but this plan will go through zoning with a site plan.
Yeah, but you're changing it to a plan where you can substitute in and out any kind of commerce you want, including, as somebody pointed out, nightclubs and things like that.
That's a possibility. Yeah. No light here, but just a right in, right out.
No light there. And are they gonna widen this road before they do all this stuff, or are they gonna come along after and tear it all up?
I would assume this will be coordinated with Bee Ridge, which I believe starts in October.
Peter, would you explain again, under CN, you could get 80,000 square feet of commercial or whatever back there, correct?
Not in one pad, no.
But you could get 80,000 square feet?
Yes. No individual use can exceed 20,000.
Okay. If you didn't get the rezoning, how many square feet could you build?
80,000 square feet.
Oh, so the square footage is not changing of what you could build?
It's just what you can put in there.
That's for the whole parcel.
No, that's just for the two pieces. If it stays PCD, we have an 80,000 square foot office building and 2 restaurants.
I don't understand what's the total square footage that you're in that total parcel?
90,000.
90,000, including raising.
No, because they're PCD. It's not part of the CN.
What?
Counts what? Not towards the CN?
Yes, it does. Anything that's inside that commercial neighborhood center counts towards the 90,000 square feet.
We'll have that discussion next time.
What's the administrative process for the next step in zoning? You're an informative session this evening. Where do you guys go from here? How will it go?
I take what I've heard here and I incorporate it into a set of minutes that have to be supplied to the staff as part of the neighborhood package. I finish the application, submit the application, staff reviews it for completeness. They give me a letter saying what I have to do to complete it. Once it's complete, then it gets scheduled for the planning commission public hearing. You don't know. The planning commission has 2 meetings a month. There are only 10 slots per meeting, so if there's 20 other things going on, it could be 3 or 4 months down the road. You don't know.
You notify everyone that is on the sign-up sheet and find out who they're good?
You're going to get an actual mail out.
You didn't answer my question.
Yes, we all do, we all.
Did you get a mail up this time?
No.
Okay, I'll make sure everybody that's on the list that went around tonight gets notice for the public.
website on how to follow the process of this?
Exactly.
The website, it's my understanding that we can follow the submission and the, as it goes through the zoning request process, that as each of the different traffic and environmental, everyone has to comment as that's submitted, we can follow it.
Or everything like that is posted on the county website.
Okay, would you give instructions to everybody here on just how to access that data?
Well, at cgov.net, and then go over what you want to do. It's up in the right-hand corner. There's an A to Z tab. You want under P, planning, and then on the, when you come to that page, all the items, like for tonight's neighborhood workshop, there's items posted on there related to what Mr. Daly has submitted to us. For example, when we get to the public hearings, when we finish staff reports, things like that, we post all that stuff up there. It's just all part of the transparency of the process. And if there's something that is not up there that you would like to see, you're welcome to see if Mr. Daly has it, whatever appropriate county agency it may pertain to, like traffic studies or anything like that, or call our office, the planning office, and let us know what you want to see if it's not available. If it's something that we can make available to you, we can make arrangements for you to come into the office, see it there, or there are costs to reproduce these things, and we can make it available to you that way, so it depends what you want.
Thank you.
So I got a question for you. Basically, the way it's sitting right now, 2 medical buildings, 2 restaurants. You want to change the zoning so you put whatever you want in?
One medical building.
Well, basically something quiet.
80,000.
It's going to be nice and quiet right now. But you want to change everything so you can put in what you like. My only question is, how do we go about voting it to down? Say we don't like that idea. Do we have a word? Are you just
here
here
at the public
fluffing us?
hearings and give,
Basically telling us
what you want.
what we want to hear, but basically we're going to do what you want to hear. What's the story with that? Can we actually come to T-shirt, anything to say no? And will we be listened to?
Of course
That would be you, right?
When you get to the planning commission, for instance, and the planning commission can put stipulations on it, on the zoning, correct, Peter? They could.
Yes.
I mean, they could say you can't have the in-out driveway, or that you've got to have an in-out driveway, or you've got to have buffers such and such, or you've got to have a wall. They could put stipulations on it that the developer would agree to. The county commission can do the same thing. In other words, if you have objections or points that you want to make,
Well, it's not the
and
layout.
if they want to do it, but you don't get a vote, we don't get a
Well,
vote.
you know, do we have a say? I mean, I don't care about your entrances, your exits. It's all going in no matter how you look at it. I'm more concerned about you changing the zoning to your behalf, so you can put in what you like, which does make, it may not benefit any of us. So how do we go about, being that we can't vote on it, as a group, go there and really make a strong opinion on it, and hope maybe we'll get it, maybe our way, not yours.
Sir, that's a process question, and Mr. Zoller and Mr. Daly, for the most part, are correct. With the process that's here, tonight, this is a listen, this is between you, the neighborhood, and you. I'm here because we're told to be here because of the commission. And I am instructed to only deal with the process. I mean, it's not my business to get into any opinions on what Mr. Daly's proposing.
Right.
That's black and white with the commission. But related to the process that you're saying, it's extremely important. Tonight, I've spoken with Mr. O'Hare and Tom over here, and I've spent a lot of time with them up till tonight explaining a lot of how the neighborhood can provide input. If you want to know anything, believe me, contact either one of these guys because they know it as well as I do. But mainly, it's like Mr. Daly said, it's the public hearings where, and once the formal application is submitted, then I've asked both of these gentlemen, please don't have everybody send our office a bunch of stuff right now, testimony, letters, anything, because we don't have an official file for anywhere to put this stuff. It's like just submitting it into the air for the moment. But once we have an official file application, then bring it in. Any emails, letters, petitions, individual comments, anything you want to provide us. And we encourage you, please, when you find out about these public hearings, take that night off, bring the family, the whole bit. That's your one chance to say what's on your mind and express your opinion.
to the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commission. So it's extremely important because up front, like Mr. Daly said, it's the evaluation stage where the county gets to look at his proposals and make comment. But once it goes to public hearing, then it's open for public input.
And hopefully they'll listen to us.
Mr. Zoller makes a good point. The Planning Commission is not the body that makes the final decision. They make it, they take, I mean, all this quasi-judicial hearing stuff, it acts like a court. They take what they call substantial and competent evidence, and then they make a recommendation based on either the applicant's presentation. Staff does not make a, we do not as staff make a recommendation. That we just don't do that. We give basically factual information, which, you know, in a lot of cases it's not that much. It's what the land use, the zoning is, things that pertain to that, and then we include all the additional staff comments in the staff report. And then the planning commission, then they discuss that, and then they make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners based on that input.
Right, because if you notice all around, there are empty stores here and there. When they put that new area together in University, my understanding is a lot of the bigger stores may gravitate that way. So that'd be more empty buildings we're going to have around. You know what I'm saying? What did they do what you want there? They now don't have anybody in.
Economics,
We have empty buildings.
It doesn't work.
All we have is empty buildings.
I guess I would just like to say that if you're interested in this, you need to follow the process. For example, I'll give you the most recent example. The zoning commission, the planning commission made a recommendation to approve Foxfire. The commissioners turned it down. So you really need to follow it all the way through the process, if in fact this is something that you're committed to. It's a lengthy process, not only for the developer, but also for the neighborhoods. But if you want to be heard, you have to take the time and do the work behind it.
We weren't here for that early one for back in the 90s, whatever it was.
Well, someone was
But now
here.
we're here, so I guess now
Yeah,
we're moving along.
someone was here and in '96, and that's the way it is. But you have to dedicate yourself to follow the process, I think.
If I can make a recommendation also, try to find among your neighbors. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Laura Deesmers, president of Kona. I recommend looking around your neighbors and seeing if you have a lawyer who might be able to also guide you through the process as well, because they're going to have the lawyers on their side, sometimes telling the county commission some untruths, and you need someone to represent you on this side.
Talk for them or something. You know.
Yeah,
What can we do
they'll
for
say
you?
something, or engineers, but if you ask your neighbors, you'll be surprised that there might be somebody in your neighborhood who's concerned, who's a lawyer or an engineer who can help you add the information you need.
Yes.
Let Ray go first. Ray, did you have a question?
I thought that this meeting tonight was more or less to find out what's going in there. That's what everybody, I thought everybody was coming here for.
And it was not for racetrack whatsoever. and I
It
tried to
wasn't
tell
for
everybody.
racetrack, but it was for
Not
the rest of
rezoning.
it.
My question
So
is,
that
everybody keeps
PCD
talking about bars, bars,
That
bars.
PCD seems to be a better zone for
No,
business
it's
than
not.
CN. It doesn't make sense why you would want a CN.
No,
There's
that's
something
opposite.
missing. There's part of this puzzle that somebody's not talking about.
It
Because you
allows
want
us
to
to
change
have
the
more
PCD.
retail commercial than the PCD allows.
Pardon me?
It allows us to have more retail commercial than the PCD district. Period.
Can I please finish? Okay, I haven't said anything all night. Let me finish. Everybody keeps talking about bars. We don't know if they're putting a bar in there. I've been through Municode for years, backwards and forwards. From what I read, it is much easier to put a bar there under the current zoning than it is as a CN. And also, there's somewhere in there that reads that you cannot have loudspeakers. You can under the current zoning, but you cannot as a CN. So everything that you're saying to me, you're worried about a bar? Well, the way it is now, it's much easier to have a bar.
Not being educated then.
That's what I just said. The
That's something we
PCD
should have been told.
gives them
worse than
more latitude than
Exactly.
CN. Why would you want to?
And by the way, there's a comparison on lakesarasota.blogspot.com about what they can put in there as PCD and what they can put in there as CN, and you can do your own comparison.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me mention one thing to you that no one here has mentioned tonight, and that is, again, it's related to processing, and I feel it's fair to mention this, and that is the PCD, as Mr. Daly has mentioned. Anything that's a planned district under the county zoning code requires a binding concept plan. This CN zoning does not. It is basically, in essence, when you read when the board would approve anything under that specific district, whether or not you have something shown on the plan, it in essence means nothing. It is because of it not requiring a binding plan. However, the caveat to that is that anything that is permitted in the CN district, the owner of the property, if he can do the site planning and do whatever he needs to do to meet all the design requirements and everything, can establish whatever use the CN district allows on that property. So that's an important thing, I think, for you to understand, because if it's rezoned to CN, in essence, you have no idea what could be put on there unless, like this lady says, you go to Municode or get a copy of the county zoning ordinance, see what is permitted in there under that district. However, with PCD, once the board approves that, then that is a district, that is what you see, is what you get.
Would it possibly be, Mr. Daly, one motivation for what you're doing is you have, I think you said, 3 medical buildings under the PCD that you're committed to, and you want to get rid of one of them and replace it with retail. Is that correct? I'm sorry. Please explain what you're doing.
This 80,000 square foot site pad, which is what you see the sidewalk around this building, is approved for medical office. We're taking that and dividing it into 2 18,000 square foot pads. Retail on the ground floor, office above.
So you are getting rid of the binding power of the PCD that limits you to medical use.
Actually, the binding power of the PCD within this black line.
Is it possible that some people would not want to put a medical building right next to a gigantic racetrack? And that might be one reason why you want to free this up from those restrictions?
No.
I have a question. So I'm reading the CN intent on the zoning code. And it says the CN permits small-scale neighborhood-oriented commercial facilities. Their proper development shall be facilitated through design techniques. The district is not intended for use by major or large-scale commercial sales, service, or automotive-oriented activities. So how does racetrack fit in?
Racetrack is going in under PCD.
They're cut out, they're that corner.
Oh, see, they can't have loudspeakers. They don't have.
So in other words, if your zoning request is approved, you in fact could change under the CN, you could change what we are looking at as perhaps 2 sit-down restaurants to any approved use under the CN.
Under CN.
Right now, you are bound to put restaurants there.
Right.
You could put anything that's in that list.
A tire store.
A tire store.
We're bound to the sense that these 2 restaurants are approved under site development and construction plan approval. We can amend that process to allow other uses that are allowed in PCD. So we're not.
Right, but we would have a say on that.
You would not. That's an administrative process through the BOD.
So to amend the binding design process under the PCD.
We don't have a binding site plan. Under PCD, we do not have a binding site plan. The zoning was done without a binding site plan. The only thing that's binding us right now is the S&D construction plan approval. And we can amend that administratively out on Calvin Road, or Sarasota Center.
They never follow the binding site plan, so that's what they say you put in there under PCD. have filed this, so we're buying those restaurants that you have.
Now, if we went through the process today, PCD would require a binding site plan. But we were not approved in that zoning with a site plan.
So they're grandfathered into not having the binding plan.
Back in 96 and 7, that was not required.
Okay.
Correction, that actually was required, but the board, what happened at the final hearing, the Board of County Commission hearing, we were asking for ILW for the whole thing. And the board said, we have the option to take and give you a lesser district. If you didn't have to apply for it, we have the option to say, we will approve a lesser district. Bobby Anderson, who was the chairman of the board, said, I propose to the board PCD. Richard Fisher, who was my partner at that point, and I got up and said, PCD what? And he said, PCD. We said groups 1 through 5, he said groups 1 through 5. No site plan. Board approved it, 5 of them. Well, I thank you all for coming, and I have, in the notice that you got, I gave you a phone number. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to call me. And we didn't get a notice when the planning.
We didn't get a
Thank you.
What is the last phone number?
302-1500.